The New York Islanders own one of the most legendary dynasty in sports. 4 consecutive Stanley Cup victories, something we will probably never see in hockey again. When we think of the 4 most legendary players in Islanders history, are they all a part of that dynasty? Here are Larry Brooks and Ethan Sears with their takes on the Islanders' Mount Rushmore.
Well, I covered those teams, and I was almost the same age as those guys, so it was a different dynamic. I think there are three automatics. Mike Bossy, perhaps the greatest goal scorer ever, greatest natural goal scorer ever. Brian Trottier, one of the great two-way centers in the history of the league, and Dennis Potvin, who I think could be on anyone's top 6 in the post-expansion era. There were three that are just automatics. And then my fourth was Al Arbour. Al Arbour was a coach who, beyond reproach. He took this team that had egos bouncing off the wall, honestly, because they were so good and they knew how good they were. All these guys, and I think every great athlete has an ego. You just have to manage it. And Al took this team that was, an expansion team. The first year they won 12 games. He came in the second year and he started building, a culture. And, of course he had players, but again, it is difficult. I think it's difficult to coach or manage a team with superstars as it is to coach a team with no superstars. I think it's a different skill, and every player on that team attributed the dynasty's success to the coach. And so that's why I had Arbour as my fourth. Now, you can talk about Billy Smith, a great money goaltender, great playoff goaltender. You can talk about Clark Gillies. Then, later on, you can start to talk about Pat LaFontaine, but they haven't won anything, right? And they really haven't come close. So I think I understand that there are outstanding players who have worn the Islander uniform post dynasty, and you want to recognize them. But when you win 4 straight cups and you win 19 straight playoff series, a professional sports record that will never be approached, never. You have to look at that team. Mount Rushmore, yeah, you could put Bill Torrey on it too. The GM who constructed the team. I mean that's an you can have a conversation. Well, should it be Torrey or should it be Arbour? And I lean to the guy who was in the trenches. But as much as the Islanders and understandably they kind of want to distance themselves from that era, they can't. They can't. It's kind of like 1994 versus 19 straight. And there have been some really good players who have come through, but it's the dynasty. And I would argue with anyone, as great a team that has ever played in the NHL. I mean, there are the 50s Canadians, there are the Islanders, there are the Oilers, and then there are the 70s Canadians. So, you can take your pick. I'll take that team.
My Islanders Mount Rushmore is Brian Trottier, Dennis Potvin, Mike Bossy, and Billy Smith. So all 4 dynasty guys. Mike Bossy, will I guess start with him. Franchise's all-time leader in goals, one of the best scorers in hockey history. 50 goals in 50 games, 573 in his career. I would say probably impossible to leave him off of this list for the Islanders. Brian Trottier, franchise leader in assists and in points. There for all 4 cups. All 4 of these guys were franchise leader in games played as well. Again, I think probably impossible to leave him off of this list. And really the same for Dennis Potvin. Franchise's #1 overall pick in 1973, won 3 Norris trophies, 7-time All-Star, one of the best defensemen in the history of hockey. Really a guy who, like everybody on this list, was emblematic of those 4 cup teams that kind of were the golden age in Islander history. And then Billy Smith, the goalie on all of those teams, an incredible postseason record, always rose to the occasion. Won the Conn Smythe, won the Vezina Trophy, another Hall of Famer. To me, I put him on here over some other guys because I just felt like he wanted the goalie in there. Felt like his playoff record was just so good. It's hard to ignore. A guy who really had such an attitude to him and such a way of playing the game that was so memorable and kind of physical for a goalie that I felt he probably deserved to be on here.
All right, so here is the official Mount Postmore for the New York Islanders. Mike Bossy, Denny Potvin, Billy Smith, and Bryan Trottier. Now, it's hard to argue that anyone outside of that dynasty era, but of course we want to know what you guys have to say about it, and we want to know your thoughts. So let us know below and make sure that you subscribe to Post Sports Plus for full access to this series.